Unemployment benefits during COVID seem to have really enticed entry-level employees to not want to come to work. Every hiring manager that I've spoke to in the last 18 months reported an abnormally high no-show rate for job interviews, which, as you can understand, would get very frustrating. So their assumption was that the candidates that were coming for the interview, or at least scheduling the interview, they really just were checking the box that they needed to appear as though they were looking for work to continue to fulfill the requirements for their unemployment benefits. So many of my clients are getting frustrated not being able to hire people, but still having their time wasted. Now that those benefits are gradually getting pulled back, what's interesting is that they're not reporting that there's an immediate surge of unemployed folks looking to re-enter the job market. So I don't know if that's because they've just been staying home and maybe gotten a little lazy and unmotivated, or if it might be because the cost of fuel right now is dramatically higher than the cost of fuel when those unemployment benefits were put into place. So I think that all of those factors might be having an effect on the slow return to the job market. And I do have lots of dealers that are offering signing bonuses, and very few of them are reporting that it's providing the motivation that they're looking for. The dealers that I've spoken to that are having success hiring new candidates are really focusing more on the benefits than the signing bonus or the wages. So they're focusing on things like PTO offered on day one rather than after 90 days, health benefits offered on day one rather than after 90 days, a 3-day work week or a 4-day work week rather than a 5-day work week, 8-hour days instead of 10-hour days. So my dealers that are really focusing on offering good life-work balance and benefits seem to be having a better success hiring people than my dealers who aren't offering that, but instead are focusing on big signing bonuses and big wages. Really, the biggest one is that entry-level employees are scarce for some of the reasons or conditions that I just mentioned. Specifically speaking to technicians, though, COVID seems to have taken the national technician shortage from bad to worse. Like I mentioned, unemployment benefits seem to have enticed entry-level technicians to stay home. And to keep up with business demands, many dealerships are giving their technicians raises to incentivize them to stay, which is a good thing. But this becomes kind of a double whammy for the dealer's cost of doing business, because the technicians that stay are getting paid more, and the entry-level technicians who would usually have the lower wage aren't there. So the service department becomes very top-heavy in the shop from a skilled labor standpoint and from a wage standpoint. So in order to keep their gross profit margins where they want, dealerships are raising their labor rates, and that increased operating cost gets passed along to the customer. Every service manager in this situation has ongoing hiring efforts, but I have yet to speak to someone who really feels like they found a reliable way to hire entry-level technicians at will. So that's still a recipe that many dealers are trying to figure out. Also, kind of same church, different pew, many fixed ops leaders are also facing parts supply issues, which may seem like a separate topic, but it has some cross-pollination with this topic, because in many instances, those parts supply issues are a function of a shortage of truck drivers, a shortage of dock workers, a shortage of employees in the parts distribution centers. So although these staff shortages aren't the dealer's staff, they are still staff shortages, and they're having additional ripple effect to the dealer in the form of parts supply issues. So the demand for automotive service, and therefore the demand for a dealer to hire technicians, has changed a lot in the last 2 years. I've already spoken to the shortage, so now let's speak to the demand. Throughout 2020, many office workers, white-collar workers, were afforded the ability to work from home, right? And at various stages from then until now, they've largely returned to the office and reassumed a somewhat normal driving pattern, which created a huge pent-up demand for light-duty maintenance, which seemed to get released kind of around the summer of 2021. Dealers who were staffed properly at that time set records, while dealers who were not staffed properly overpromised and underdelivered, which is creating a long-lasting ripple effect to their business in the form of client attrition. Meanwhile, blue-collar workers never broke stride because there's no such thing as Zoom to a bricklayer or a landscaper, right? As a matter of fact, the demand for their skilled labor increased throughout COVID because a lot of the white-collar workers who were clocking in from home were looking around their house and becoming more motivated to do some of the home improvement projects that they'd previously been kicking down the road. So this created a big surge of business for contractors of all sorts. In turn, the demand for service on their domestic trucks increased. So Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealers who are staffed appropriately to respond to that are really enjoying additional fleet business and additional heavy-duty business. Also, new topic on this question, and this is old news to anybody watching this video, but the low supply of new cars is making both new and pre-owned cars more costly than the average consumer is used to. So as a result, people seem to be keeping their current cars longer and investing in them. What a great customer pay opportunity for our dealers, right? So every dealer should be considering how to better market themselves to the older model year cars in their market, because more often than not, that 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 model year old car is no longer a dealership person. They're the third or fourth owner of that car that goes to independent shops. So that's not a blanket statement, it's just a general statement. So my recommendation to our dealer network would be to consider how to market yourself to that older model year car that might not be a regular servicing customer of yours and they're in a meaningful relationship with an independent repair facility. And then as a quick side note, during the recent COVID surge, and I'm referring to December 2021 and January 2022, dealers are reporting a much larger than average no-show rate for their service appointments. My hope is that as this recent variant runs its course, that's going to self-correct, but all of our dealers would be well advised to have some sort of missed appointment follow-up system, whether that's with a text message or an email or an outbound phone call. Outbound phone call would be best, but follow up with your missed appointments. That's going to be a very fruitful opportunity. So I was a service manager or service director or fixed ops director from 2009 to 2016. And there was absolutely a technician labor shortage when I was a manager. There were very few entry-level technicians on the market, and master technicians worth hiring were being well cared for by their current employer. Most of the master technicians that were on the job market were coming in with bad habits and negative attitudes. So these conditions that I faced are still an issue today. The difference now versus then is we have additional economic conditions which are enticing the lower wage workers to stay home. I think that if you had 100 dealers, 100 service managers in a room for a meeting and asked them to raise their hand and ask them how many of you have an apprenticeship program, 95 out of 100, if not more, would raise their hand and say, I have an apprenticeship program. But that's a very subjective thing. An apprenticeship program is going to mean something different to each service manager. To many service managers, an apprenticeship program is nothing more sophisticated than I hire entry-level technicians, I give them online classes to complete and hold them accountable to do so, and somewhere we have a roaming shop foreman that will help them and train them if they raise their hand and say that they need help. And that's not, in my opinion, a real apprenticeship program. A real apprenticeship program needs ongoing education, both virtual and hands-on. I've seen dealers have success with team systems where each dealership has several technician teams, and those tech teams usually are 4, 5, or 6 technicians, 2 entry-level, 2 mid-level, 1 master, and that master is responsible for the ongoing training of everybody who is on his team. And that shows entry-level technicians not only the hands-on learning that they need, but it also shows that there's a career path. It's not that there's 40 techs in this shop with 1 shop foreman, there's 5 teams in this shop, and every team has 1 shop foreman, and there's several levels that I can work to achieve between here and there. So for there to be a real apprenticeship, there needs to be ongoing classroom training, ongoing virtual, ongoing hands-on, and a career path. So the first recommendation I would give is to have an awareness that this pandemic afforded some of your staff the ability to stay home for a bit, okay? And this is happening in an ongoing manner if someone gets exposed or if someone becomes symptomatic. If you've heard the phrase, "a rolling stone gathers no moss," then you'll understand that it's entirely normal for someone who's returning to work to have a bit of a diminished energy level. That for the last week or two, they've been sitting. It's a little depressing. They're not doing much. And because of that, they may be returning to work with a lower level of energy and a lower level of focus. So my recommendation is consider making a big deal about it when somebody comes back to work. Celebrate their return with the team. And if they're in a performance-based role, consider giving them a fast start bonus to incentivize them to get back to 100% of their normal production level right out of the gate. This will help them feel welcomed and also help them refocus. My second recommendation is to keep a pulse on what your competitors are paying and be willing to compete. Do not wait for your employee to ask for a raise, or worse yet, give you notice of wanting to leave for a better offer. If you find that the market wage is above your current staffing wage, correct it, give your staff a raise. And if you can, find a way to do so that rewards job performance and tenure. If you have to, raise your prices to afford you the ability to keep your wages in line with the market. Shop your competition to find out what they charge for common services and make sure you do not price yourself out of the market. Also, most manufacturers allow you to submit for a warranty labor rate increase every single year. So engage in this process and educate yourself on how to maximize the outcome of that process. The next recommendation is to understand that there's more to staff retention than good wages and signing bonuses. Engage your team in regular one-on-ones. Your staff wants to be led. They want to know whether or not they're doing a good job. They want to know that they're working towards something. They want to know that you care about them. They want to be a part of a team. So host team building activities regularly and publicly recognize teammates with high performance. Recognize birthdays, recognize work anniversaries. My next recommendation is to keep a pulse on what job benefits your competitors are offering. I mentioned earlier that some of my clients were having success attracting and retaining people are doing pretty innovative and aggressive benefits. Many of them are starting paid time off on day one. Some of them are offering unlimited time off. It's not uncommon now to see benefits start on day 1 or day 30, where the industry standard used to be 90. A lot of dealers are going to a 4-day work week. I even have a dealer that's doing a 3-day work week. So understand that people are attracted to a good life work balance just as much as they're attracted to a good wage. So make sure that you're offering both. Last recommendation, when it comes to hiring staff, realize that there is more demand for staff than supply right now. So think of ways to differentiate yourself. Wage, schedule, benefits, we've spoken about those. Look at your culture and consider whether or not it's a culture that would attract somebody who might be coming from a great place of doing business. Also consider developing a deep and meaningful relationship with your local trade schools. Offer to serve on their board and give input on curriculum development. Arrange to speak to their student body on a regular schedule, at least quarterly. Attend their job fairs, or better yet, offer to host their job fairs at your dealership. When you retire a piece of equipment, like a brake lathe or a tire balancer, don't give it back to Hunter and take their trade-in value on the new piece of equipment. Instead, donate it to their school and maybe send one of your technicians over there for a day to help get it set up and give a training on how to use it. All of those things will develop a deep, meaningful relationship with a trade school, and I assure you will give you a leg up hiring some of their graduates over other dealerships that are trying to do the same.